On this episode of AV Week, supporting local AV shows, the power of USB-C, and Exertis exits Australia. All that and more. Next on AV Week.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 573, recorded Friday, August 12th, 2022. Power AV.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Extron, industry-leading technology backed by world-class support.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we've got this week, first and foremost, incredible young woman. Her name is Bren Walker from Kirkegaard. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Tim. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Also with me is my brother from another mother. His name is Joel Carroll, and he owns the best shirts in the entire AV industry. Also works for Mersive. Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Tim. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. And our old friend, Mr. Eugene Ababio. You are with you guys have got a new thing going at over at AV Pros. We'll talk about that in a second. But how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Tim. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. A couple pieces of housekeeping really quickly. We are going to be local in Chicago for our first regional Fuse event, a week actually from the time this posts. So if you want to find out more about that, go over to the website and sign up for that. First up for today, taking a look at our friends over at AV Magazine, I'm talking about Exertis. Exertis has exited the Australia market, Exertis Pro AV, I should say. What they've done, though, in leaving Australia is they've left about 8 or 9, they've left 8 AV brands, looking for distribution, looking for customers. Something that was very interesting here is the fact that, traditionally Australia it's not been the world's biggest market, but it does add to the Asia Pac number, which right now is exceeding the American number, the U.S. number. Bren, first question for you on this: what does the exiting of the Australian market mean for Exertis, but also what does it mean for the brands that kind of relied on them for that distribution?
Well, I think the brands will end up elsewhere, right? It's sort of like water, if there's a place for it to flow, it'll flow to it. As long as there's still customers there, you'll figure out your path. It might be bumpy for a while. I worked at Virgin Records early in my career, and we had an Australian Australian office, and Australia is difficult. Even if it does add to that number, there's transportation issues dealing with Australia. I mean, there's bureaucratic issues. They did well with COVID in the beginning because of how bureaucratically strict they are. So I can't blame them for not wanting to play in that market if they just had a small office with a couple of people. Now, whether the decision making of how they got to closing that office, if you're just doing it based on the numbers, I mean, that's about what your business plan is about. It seems as though their brand wasn't well established, so they're not losing much in terms of brand value there. We're living in a world where people are going to disappear. We're at the start of a very difficult economic time. Those of us in AV have been feeling it. We've been feeling it probably more than a lot of other people. To us, it's been more than just, there's no toilet paper on the shelf this week. So we're in for it. And I think that we have to be ready, as an industry for more contraction.
Joel, look at it from both a manufacturing standpoint, because you work for Mersive, but also, how do you continue to support your customers, the customers of the dealers, when suddenly, your channel, your avenue to them is suddenly either changed or cut off completely?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point. We talk about the support. A lot of the distributors that we work with and we don't go through distribution, but just in experience and well from other companies, they do provide a level of support, right? So there are a lot of times the feet on the ground for that specific manufacturer. So, from the manufacturing side, not only do we have to then find who's going to sell the product, one, do they have competing products that won't allow you to be picked up for whatever reason by the other lines? So that's a challenge. And then two, how do we get those people up to speed once we select a new distributor in said market so they can do a first level support and start to know the product and find a place to put it in? And that probably is going to even be a bigger challenge. My product specifically, I know if we're going to go teach somebody how to do it and how to use it, it takes some time and they have to be vested in wanting to learn. And if you don't have that over there as a product, you're not going to do well in a market like that has really zero support, and it doesn't have really any access to people locally that can come in and say, all right, we got you, other than maybe the local integrator who also should know the product, right, and help out on those fronts. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing we have to worry about. One, can somebody pick us up? And two, how do we make sure that we can get everybody trained to provide support to those end users and the channel in general?
All right, Eugene, you'll have the anchor on this one. When you look at stuff like this, and Bren mentioned the fact that we're getting ready to go into a pretty significant economic issue or storm, there are going to be some contractions. There are going to be some folks exiting the market one way or the other. If you're talking with a customer, or you're talking with somebody who you've quoted their project, you quoted this product versus that one, how then would you go about continuing to support your client, support the job, even though suddenly company XYZ is no longer available?
That is a very tricky and a very good question, and quite frankly, I don't even know how to answer that question because it isn't just me. This is an industry-wide problem. The good thing is that we're not suffering alone, right? This is across every other industry, and not just AV. What is scary with our particular industry is for a while we have not, unless something changed in the last few years, we have not been really appreciated on the in a way that maybe electricians and the IT market and other markets are appreciated and recognized, right? We're not necessarily recognized in that way. Now they know, clients know, when they need AV, we come in and they know what to do, but we're not necessarily officially recognized in that way. So it's scary times. I've seen companies firing now. Now, particularly with what I do, I usually come in at the end when equipment is installed. Even though along the way I'm aware of purchasing issues, I come in when equipment and everything is installed, and I get to commission and make them work. But it makes my job very hard because I can't come in. I can't do anything until equipment is purchased, installed, and fully functioning. So that's a very good question. I have to be honest. It's a scary time. Everything is up in the air right now. Manufacturers are making big moves. They are, dumping products. They're moving on. It's a good question, and if any one of you have answers to that question, I would love to hear it.
I mean, I'm on the other end of what you're feeling, right? So I design a project. I have one device that is no longer available, and all of a sudden I am redesigning a third of that project. And while that's happening, my projects that should be over, that were commissioned and tuned in 2020, they're not over because something failed in the system. That something's no longer available, and now we're redesigning again. So it's a very, very challenging time, and we haven't even started talking about the labor issue. We haven't even talked about that. So
To that point, to your point, I just received about 4 or 5 emails regarding the same jobs. We're at a point now we're not even updating drawings, right? Because it's actively changing. We think we have a piece of equipment, we no longer have it. What do we do? Throw whatever you have. We don't even update drawings anymore because of that.
Lucky
All
you.
right, Bren, you mentioned it, so explain it for folks who aren't paying attention to the labor issue. What is the labor issue?
Oh, I mean, it's shortage everywhere, right? It's shortage everywhere, and we're seeing on some jobs where integrators are bringing in people who are brand new, and the crew is twice the size it should be because they're training somebody who is brand new. Or where it's, the start of a project. I mean, the managing the delay in big pieces like transformers, right? Managing that delay along with when that integrator says they can start and when they need to be finished because of what's coming next for them. So if they need to we're going to start in 3 months, they need to start in 3 months. If they're not starting for another 2 months, then it's a ripple effect where if that they can actually lose talent that they have in terms of labor if they're just sitting on the side. And not everybody can afford to have people sitting on the side while they wait for things to come through. Only the big firms can do that. So that puts a lot of pressure on smaller firms, which are going to have a harder time trying to find talent anyway, because it's difficult right now to find talent in just about any field. So, as far as that goes, I think all we can be doing is trying to get more people in this field at every level,
Yeah,
It's interesting a point you made. I was actually talking to an integrator not long ago. They are not able to do work through the rest of this year that has to do with install. So anything that's install related, they got to start selling 2020 or 2023 or whatever that is and out, right? So it's hard because they can't find people. And what does that then do? Because it's a ripple effect. It hits salespeople. So then salespeople aren't able to, get, their commissions or whatever the case may be, depending on how that all works out, which then in turn hurts the company later down the road. Because again, they don't have people selling because they don't have people to do the install.
And that salesperson is going to move on to something else, right? They have to.
Correct. Yes.
Because they can't sit it out and wait.
Right.
So 2022.
Right.
This is what the third year of a pandemic looks like. That's what I decided.
All right.
It's still the pandemic we're talking about, and this is
It is, and I don't want to anymore, but it is. All right, let's move on to something. I'm not sure it's positive or not, but it's there. Our friends over at AV Network and SCN, and Joe Cornwall. Joe Cornwall. If you've never met Joe Cornwall, oh my lord, find me the next time that we're at a trade show, and I will introduce you because he's just a fun guy to know. And Joe has been talking about USB-C, I know, for 5 years, possibly longer. He goes into this and he writes a very interesting article about USB-C. He goes over a couple of different things, lists out, the fact that it's got more power. You're able to send video down the USB-C. It has this alternate mode which produces or which supports mobile high definition link, or MHL, which is the ability to connect these mobile displays to devices. So there's really powerful stuff. But this is the quote I want to pull from it. USB-C is a powerful connection. This evolving technology not only supports legacy peripherals, but also the future of UHD and the demand for greater transfer speeds. Joel, we'll start with you on this. Where does USB-C belong in Pro AV?
Well, I'm going to turn the page back about 20 years for a second and look at analog first, right? When we went from analog to HDMI and DVI, and what did we hear in the world? It's never going to take off. HDMI is never going to work. There was HDCP, EDID, Elemental P, and all these other acronyms we were always talking about that were causing these challenges for us. And what ended up happening? I mean, what do we install now? What do we all use on a regular basis? Is a lot of the stuff's HDMI, and for good reason, because it created new technology. The stuff we have today, we could not do at all without the speeds that we got from HDMI and some of those other issues, which is kind of interesting because it caused a problem. all the AV integrators that didn't want to move in that digital realm, a lot of them kind of fell by the wayside. Some of them went away, and they want to stick in the analog world. USB-C, I think, is another opportunity for that same type of change. I feel, maybe popular opinion or not, but I really feel it's necessary to be able to get to that next level. We do a lot of stuff. Everything's AV over IP. It's all encoded, and that's great. But when you get to some of those other command and control spaces and all these other things that we're seeing come more fruition, the environments that we're getting into, you need more data. I don't think we're ever going to have enough. When we get enough, we're going to have something else that comes out. So I feel that the market needs to embrace it and be ready for it, even if it's not here today, just to ensure they're not going to fall by the wayside because they didn't want to get on board with how USB-C is going to work in those hardwired type connections.
All right, Eugene, same kind of question to you. Take a look at USB-C. Is it something that belongs in the industry, or is it something that we can kind of pass along and wait for the next piece of technology?
No moving on from USB-C. I do think it's the next generation of connection. It does provide the necessary bandwidth for what we need. It's 10 gigs or up to 10 gigs. I think that's really great for what we really do. But just two problems. One is that when will they make it lockable or something that we can screw and keep in permanent on our gear? Number two is having access to a good extender. I've searched up, down, left, right for a good USB 3.0, 3.2, or C extender. It's been a very difficult task, believe it or not. But the fact that England is making it a national standard means that it's definitely not going away. And if we've learned anything here on the other side of the pond, is that we should really be following behind England, whatever they do. Right. So, yeah, I don't think it's something to ignore. Quite frankly, I do think that we need to step up. It's great. It's small. It's perfect as a peripheral on a smaller form factor product.
All right, Bren, same kind of question to you. When you're looking at the designs for the next 2 years, 3 years, is this something that we're continuing to put in?
Absolutely. And I feel that pain on the extender. I'm feeling it right now on a particular project, actually. I think back about just USB in general and how powerful USB was from, the beginning, and how much easier it made for someone who is not technical to make devices talk to one to another. So to me, this is fantastic. I hope we get to the place where it's a standard in North America. And the one thing I like about it too is the bidirectionality. Yeah, and we haven't even begun to see what we can do with that. I think about all kinds of interesting things that could happen because it's bidirectional. In terms of realizing some of the things we say about making experience personalized to people. And so good stuff all the way around.
All right. Final story comes to us from our friends. From us, AVNation. But our friends at Pearl Technology are hosting their second annual showcase. This is a frequent guest of AVWeek, Jeremy Caldera, and his company. They had their first showcase last summer at the Peoria Riverfront Museum in Peoria, Illinois. They are doing it again September 12th. Again, back to Peoria and the Peoria Riverfront. So if you're in that area, go and hang out with Caldera, former CTS committee chairperson. So check him out as well. But Eugene, I want to start with you on this. As we're coming out of COVID, and yes, Bren, I am tired of talking about COVID, but as we're coming out of it, and big, ginormous, multinational and national events like Infocom and ISE are coming back. When you look at local events like Jeremy's and Pearl Technologies, kind of that's certainly a local, regional event. What makes you, and Eugene, Eugene's in the New York area, what would make you kind of go out and support a local event as opposed to maybe saying, no, I'm going to go to Infocom or I'm going to go to CEDIA here if you're in the residential market?
Oh, man. Free food.
Okay.
Free entertainment, beer, I mean, there has to be great incentive now, try to get us out the door and into the public. And, unfortunately with the monkeypox now, it makes things a little bit more complicated. I had to, in the last couple of days, before I can actually walk into my client space, I have to take a COVID test, right, and sit there and wait. I'm sick and tired of COVID. I don't want to risk getting anything else, and so I don't know. I don't think, is it really necessary to, really be meeting people now, and when I can get the same information from, some kind of conferencing or remote connection, some web. I don't know. What is the incentive there now to have people move from one place to another physically?
Bren, same question is what would it take? Eugene pointed out, what would it take to kind of get you out there and to interact with people on a local or regional basis?
I think you got to offer me something I can't get somewhere else.
Hmm.
Right. And just showing me a product is not enough, because I have other forums that I can see product. So what is it about Peoria and what's in Peoria that should make us drive from Chicago to Peoria to go, And I think that our industry needs more thought leadership. It needs, at those kinds of events, we need people talking about how we overcome the idea that we're not as important as other segments, when clearly video is the top form of communication in the world, and it's in the name, in our name, audiovisual, it's right there. So I look at those events. If you've got somebody coming to talk who can say something that's going to help me grow, I might be interested. Free food ain't going to do it, and swag isn't going to do it either. So, I got enough t-shirts and mugs and whatnot. Give me something I can't get anywhere else.
I want to point out that Bren is probably more sophisticated than all three of us put together, gentlemen. Just want to point that out there. I'm 100% with Eugene. You give me food, you give me, some. Yeah, I'm with him. Joel, and I know you're there too, because if there's food involved. Joel, same question: is how are we getting folks to these regional events?
Well, I'm a picky eater, so food never gets
My
me.
foot, I've eaten with you.
Oh, come on. But you've eaten, yeah. Well, okay. There are places I've eaten with you because I like hanging out with you, Tim.
Okay, is that the case?
It's the company that was there that drew me to that.
That Waffle House at 3 o'clock in the
experience.
morning was my company. It wasn't the
Exactly.
Waffle House, come on, gotta do it.
I go to Waffle House only once a year, actually, and it's only with Erica, and she gets to pick the day. I
wow.
I live in the South. I still can't do Waffle House. Anyway, I don't. I mean, to Brent's point, I think the food and having beverages and things like that, it's starting to change. That used to be a big draw, I feel, and I don't want to say it's not important to still have that there, so you have a community and people get together. But I think there's a necessity for these events to change. What's the reason for us to go? Why can't I just, like Eugene said, why can't I look up the specs online and get that data? Why would I want to go to the show if it's only going to be somebody that in the speaking events do nothing more than a product pitch? I can do that online. I can do that on YouTube. So for me, it's like the thought leadership aspect. If people are there doing thought leadership, then you get to meet that individual and communicate. And it's not, to me, a presentation at that point. It's actually a thought leadership group where you're talking back and forth, not just being spoke at. I think that's critical if I'm going to go to an event. The other thing is experiential. There's a lot of events that go on, and I don't go to a lot of them. Some of them I will, but I will pick and choose a little bit based on the experience that's going to occur. Will I get a tour of a campus of a higher education institution by going to this event? Will I see something and get into a door of a company that I never would see what they would typically be doing if I didn't attend that event? I want to say a few years ago, Avixa did something here at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah.
And we got this really cool backstage tour and all that. Honestly, it's great that Avixa came into town. I'm not going to drive an hour and a half and go sit in Atlanta for any other reason other than I had that opportunity to see the back end. So those experiences help create dreams, create thoughts, create ideas. And we can take even what they do in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and figure out how can I try to get that type of experience even in a small conference room, within reason, obviously. But it helps to spawn stuff. To me, that's key. Otherwise, I think we'll see those smaller shows slowly but surely lose attendees.
If they're smart, Tim, they'll add a job fair to their small show. Because I
Oh,
would
yeah.
come if there was
That's a
a
great
chance that I
idea.
might meet talent.
We should be charging for this. Like,
Yeah.
all right. I'm gonna let you guys continue on your Friday. Thank you all so much, Bren Walker. Always a pleasure, madam. I always learn something from you. So thank you so much. How do people connect with you?
Bren at Kirkegaard.com or on LinkedIn, Brenda J. Walker.
All right, very good. Mr. Joel Carroll, thank you, sir. How do people connect with you or Mersive?
Absolutely. So Mersive is mersive.com. It's jcarroll at mersive.com, or find me on LinkedIn. It's the Joel Carroll is my tag.
All right. Eugene, always good to see you, sir. Talk for a second before you give people your socials about what avpros.io is, what you guys are doing, and some of the changes you're hoping to make in the industry.
Yeah, so thank you, by the way, for this opportunity. What we have realized during the pandemic, just like anyone else, is that it's necessary to remain agile, right? Flexible to
Yep.
new ways of doing business. Otherwise, you die out, right? If you are unflexible and there's a strong wind and you're so stiff, you're going to break. So instead of us breaking, we're trying to bend. And the direction in which we're trying to bend is that we're noticing that systems are becoming simpler, and clients are now more interested in designing their own system and maybe putting it together. Now, they may not be able to do it 100% like we do, right? Because we're professionals. So what we're trying to do is to allow them the opportunity to build their own system and products, right? In a simplified way, knowing that there is a brain and there is a genius behind verifying what they're doing. So we're trying to build a system that gives them control, but yet allow us some level of control, and of course allowing us the opportunity to do the installation post, design. That being said, in order to make all of that work, we needed to come together and form what we could, now called AV Pros. Now, I still have my own entity. We all still have our own thing, but we are coming together as, a partner. So we formed a really great partnership, and we are operating as with a general contractor, right? You don't necessarily need the painter, the plumber, the guys who's doing the mason, the roofing guy, all working for the same company, right? But yet you can still have that one, company that can reach out to various, specialties to achieve a task, and yet still carry the same responsibility and liability. And so that's where we formed AV Pros. It's basically made of, people like myself and other professionals in this industry coming together to cater towards, clients who are looking for those simple systems without the big, AV switching. Now we still do that, except we're allowing them to, come to a certain point, and then we carry, clients' needs beyond that.
Very cool. A couple of years ago, Mitch Klein from the Z-Wave Alliance, he was talking and made the comment that on the residential side there is a do it with me type market. That is exactly what you're talking about there on the commercial side, right? So good for you guys. So thanks so much. Looking forward to see what you guys and kind of come up with in some of the jobs that you're involved with. So very cool. For Tim Albright, do not follow me on the Twitters. Tomorrow, as we're recording this, the Bears play Kansas City, so I will be complaining about the Bears for the next 3 or 4 months. Chicago American football for those of you overseas. But go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. I mentioned Cedia at the beginning of the show. We will be going to Cedia. You can check out our residential show. My buddy Matt Scott hosts that every Wednesday. You also check out Fuse, fuse.avnation.tv. That is our user portal. We're having a Fuse event in Chicago the 22nd of August. You can check all that out and more at avnation.tv. It's avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV Week.